Hello everyone, welcome back to the Hurricane HQ, and in this video we'll be going over the current situation in Florida with Hurricane Ian and how this storm could impact the Florida coast and even some portions of Georgia and northern Florida a little bit later on. So let's first take a look at our current watches and warnings across Florida. So we currently do have a hurricane warning in effect for much of the Florida coast, actually. If I quickly take a look here. All these regions, I'll actually just take a closer look. But all these regions here, which are in that, I'll just do it right here, this lighter reddish type color here, you are in a hurricane warning. So this region here, it goes all the way from the Tampa region south to the Fort Myers region. That is where those hurricane warnings are, and that is where we are expecting the potential for hurricane force winds in that region, as well as very dangerous storm surges, as there is a storm surge warning for the coastline of those same regions. Take a look at these storm surge warnings. It does look like we could be seeing inundation up to 7 to 10 feet in some regions here. So quite significant storm surge is possible with this storm, especially for the Tampa region. It looks like Tampa Bay especially has to watch out for this, as storm surge looks like it'll be most significant in this general region. We also have a tropical storm warning in effect for all the way up from like Cedar Key, Florida, all the way down into the West Palm Beach region. Is where that tropical storm warning is in effect for. In those regions, we have the potential for tropical storm force winds and maybe some hurricane force wind gusts. While it doesn't look like we are going to be seeing as bad of impacts in those regions, we still have to watch out. So Melbourne, Orlando, Fort Pierce, Brooksville, all those regions there, you have to watch out for tropical storm force wind impacts, and even some areas like Daytona Beach and Ocala, they are in a tropical storm watch, so there is potential for some tropical storm force winds there, although it's not yet certain what we'll see. Now, a hurricane watch is in effect for the coast here. This one little coastal zone that I did circle here, there is a hurricane watch there, but that remains our only hurricane watch over the water, at least, which is not under a tropical storm alert. I believe here is also under one, right? Yes. So it does look like there is hurricane watches also for these coastal regions here, as there is still uncertainty on where those dangerous winds above hurricane force threshold will mostly be located. It looks like in those regions, though, where there is a hurricane warning is where there is the highest confidence of hurricane force winds. And it really looks like, yeah, Tampa region is the main region you have to watch out for. This storm is going to weaken quite substantially as it does move into Florida. So it's going to be very quick that we see those really bad impacts, although it will weaken significantly. Still, tropical storm force winds are expected for much of the Florida Panhandle. So now let's take a look at the current information here on the National Hurricane Center. So the current location of Ian is currently near Cuba here, as you can see. Western Cuba's current location of Ian, maximum sustained winds of around 115 miles per hour, with minimum still pressure of 963 millibars, as well as a location of 23.0 degrees north and 83.5 degrees west. And this storm is moving at about 10 knots or 10 mile per hour northward. So not the fastest moving storm. It is making its way, though, to the north. So again, current forecast here by the National Hurricane Center is showing hurricane warnings in effect for the Key West region, or just to the west of Key West there, as well as that Tampa Bay region, central west coast of Florida, with tropical storm warnings on both the east and west coast of Florida. Tropical storm watches in effect on the Florida Panhandle region here, eastern Florida Panhandle, as well as the Miami region, and even portions of Georgia and South Carolina are in tropical storm watches due to the potential of tropical storm force winds all the way up to there. Now, it does look like you can probably see here that the storm is going to significantly slow down as it does when it does make landfall here. It's going to go from a major hurricane to a hurricane and down to a tropical storm. In this small region here, it really makes its way from Tampa to Orlando. There is generally how far it's going to make it. And it's going to be 8 p.m. Wednesday to 8 p.m. Thursday. So this is basically 24 hours of heavy rainfall and hurricane/tropical storm force conditions just practically stalled over Florida there. And eventually it will start to move a bit quicker as you do reach Friday morning into Saturday. We'll see Ian moving a bit faster, and then eventually heading into Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, and eventually portions of the Mid-Atlantic, bringing heavy rainfall there. So we take a look at our wind speed probabilities right now. Very high confidence in tropical storm force winds for much of central East Florida, as well as central Florida Panhandle there. That is where our main confidence area is for these winds. I'd say really anywhere from the Big Bend to here, just to the north of Miami and west of Miami is where that high confidence region is for at least tropical storm force winds. Hurricane force wind probabilities do decrease a bit. They're a bit less confident on how long these will last. There is high confidence that there will be hurricane force winds after it does move off the coast of Cuba and currently right now, although it just depends how fast this storm does fall apart when it does make landfall. So I guess that is why they're saying there's less confidence in how long those hurricane force winds will last. There is a small region right here, though, that does show slightly increased confidence of hurricane force winds over the Atlantic, so it's possible that we could be seeing a little bit of strengthening as this storm does exit Florida and possibly then make its way towards Georgia and South Carolina there. So if it does head offshore a little bit more to the east, then we could be seeing a slight bit of strengthening there and a slight increase of confidence of hurricane/tropical storm force winds there. And now if we take a look at our peak surge levels across Florida, this is a little bit increased for some regions. So Tampa region, you are in the 5 to 8 foot as the storm is trending a bit more east or at least south in some ways here. So that main surge area is most likely going to be between the middle of Longboat Key to Bonita Beach. 8 to 12 foot storm surge is possible there, as well as the Charlotte Harbor. The Tampa region is expecting 5 to 8 feet of storm surge, which is still above most people. So very significant still. Definitely can cause a lot of damage. And storm surge risk does continue. 46 down here near Key West, and 4 to 6 up here from Antelope River to Swanee River. And just to note this now, there's also the risk for storm surge along the coast of the east coast of Florida and portions of Georgia and South Carolina here. The risk for storm surge there is anywhere from 3 to 5, maybe 4 to 6 in some of those isolated regions here. So watch out for storm surge, both if you're on the west coast of Florida especially, and even the east coast of Florida or Georgia or South Carolina, as there is definitely some chances there for something. Now, if we take a look at our current flooding potential across some of these regions, a lot of rainfall is actually expected. 15 to 20 inches of rainfall is expected for portions of the Tampa Bay. While it doesn't look like the worst storm surge will just be to the south of Tampa, the worst of that heavy rainfall is expected right over Tampa Bay and St. Petersburg there. So expect very heavy rainfall going anywhere from the Tampa Bay region just to the north of Orlando, this region here is our main area we have to watch for at least 10 inches of rainfall, which is quite significant, and this heavy rainfall will definitely bring the chance for flash flooding across much of Florida. Now, if we take a look at our flash flooding potential across Florida during the next few days, might actually take a look at the Weather Prediction Center for that. At least with this storm, it looks like, as you can see here, we have a moderate risk in effect for here, Central Florida, or at least the Central and Northern Florida Panhandle look to be where the most of that flooding rainfall is going to be. Same with here, more the North and Central Florida Panhandle is where that moderate risk is in effect. Now, if models do start trending a little bit heavier with the rainfall, it's possible we could get a small high risk somewhere for that excessive rainfall, but at this time, it remains immoderate for both day 2 and day 3. With day 1, the only main risk here is the flash flooding potential in southern Florida, which I will actually go over now. As well as the storm potential, there is actually a slight risk for severe thunderstorms in southern Florida here. 5% wind risk and 5% for tornadoes here in South Florida. That is a tornado-driven slight risk, as there is definitely the potential for some water spouts and or tornadoes, I'd say brief tornadoes in southern Florida there. So definitely pay attention to the warnings, and if you do go under a tornado warning today, seek shelter in the most interior room on the lowest floor of your home. So going back to the current radar imagery, we'll take a look at GeoAnalyst here. We are seeing some of these bands of heavy rainfall starting to move into southern Florida. As you can see, these bands are moving in. They're actually starting to move into slightly more populated areas, but luckily it looks to be more moderate rainfall instead of heavy. So while there is some flash flood risk with this, I don't think it's really as bad right now as it will get later on. We are seeing some heavier rain bands right here, especially to the north of this storm is really where those main bands are. So right now, the flash flooding risk isn't too great, but that can change as we go later into today, as this storm does near the Florida coastline. And I would like to just mention, take a look at this very well-organized line here. It's currently moving off the Cuban coast. I'd say at this point, it's most likely out of Cuba, at least the center of circulation is. And yeah, this storm is just going to move its way towards Florida. It is expected to become a Category 4 quite soon, possibly even up to 130 mile per hour, which is pretty significant. I know it did say 140 at one point. I guess in the new update they did decrease that to 130. But yeah, still a Category 4 is still quite significant, and it is likely going to make landfall at around 125 mile per hour, Category 3. So while it is 5 mile per hour weaker than a Category 4, it is still going to impact the Florida coast and likely make landfall as a significant storm. And yeah, it's just really going to slow down as it does move into Florida here. And luckily, it is expected to die quite quickly. It's not going to be the long type of surviving storm that we get where it lasts for days. It is going to die quite quickly, but keep in mind, impacts can occur and hazardous conditions can occur for over 24 hours in this event here. So if you are in Florida, especially that west coast, and you are ordered to evacuate, make sure you follow those warnings and evacuate. If you are anywhere in Florida that's under either a hurricane warning or a tropical storm warning, make sure your hurricane kit is ready. And again, if you are ordered to evacuate, please do so, because the people who tell you to evacuate usually know what they're talking about and know what your area could experience. So definitely, if you aren't ordered to evacuate, either evacuate voluntarily if you are in an area that floods commonly in hurricanes, and if not, make sure your hurricane kit is ready to go, as the impacts from this tropical system will only get worse from here. Now that's going to wrap up this video. I hope everyone found this video informative. I know I didn't really make any graphics for this one, but I did want to make something to get out there because this is such a dangerous storm, and I wanted to make sure people had the latest information on this. Now, if anyone does have any further questions on anything I did or didn't cover in this video with this storm, please feel free to comment that below, and I'll make sure to answer those later on today and tomorrow. Now again, thank you for watching, and if you're in Florida, stay safe and have an amazing day.